What?
Here we are.
Hey,
Yeah, we're having a few false starts, but maybe this one will work. We got, and it's all my fault. So
good shot.
anyway, we have a story from Luke, chapter 10 that Tom will tell us. So he says it's a hard story. So we'll see how it goes. Take it away, Tom.
Here we go. After his discussions with several would-be followers, Jesus appointed 70 others and sent them ahead of him in pairs to go to the towns and places where he himself intended to go. And he said to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest to send laborers into his harvest. Go on your way. And look, I am sending you like lambs into the midst of wolves. Take no purse, no sandals, no bag, and do not greet anyone on the road. Whatever house you enter, first say, 'Peace be to this house.' And if there is anyone in that house who shares in peace, your peace will rest on that person. But if not, it will return to you. Remain in the same house, eating and drinking whatever they provide for you, for the laborer deserves to be paid. Do not move from house to house. And whenever you enter a town and the people welcome you, eat what is provided and cure the sick who are there, and say to them, 'The kingdom of God has come near to you.' But if you enter a town and they do not welcome you, then go out into the streets and say, 'Even the dust of your town that clings to our feet, we wipe off as a protest against you. Whoever listens to you will listen to me. And whoever listens to me listens to the one who sent me. And whoever rejects you rejects me, and whoever rejects me rejects the one who sent me.' The 70 returned with joy, saying, 'In your name, Lord, even the demons submit to us.' And Jesus said to them, 'I saw Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning. And look, I have given you authority to tread on scorpions and snakes and over all the powers of the enemy. Nothing will hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the demons submit to you, but rather rejoice that your names are written in heaven.'"
All right. Good job, Tom. But I do, I am reading along here just because people are listening, and I want to make sure, we need to make any corrections that need to be made. And in this case, there's one that I think is really important. Jesus talks about these two different kinds of houses where people might, his followers might go. So the first ones will receive him. And he says, eat whatever they set before you and cure the sick, and say to them, let me look, the kingdom of God has come near to you. And then he talks about the places where they might go where they wouldn't be received, and how they should, even the dust of your town that clings to your feet, we wipe off and protest against you. Okay, this line you forgot. Yet know this, the kingdom of God has come near.
Right.
So I think
Right.
it's important that Jesus said both to those who received him and those who didn't, that his followers would communicate that, good news, I guess. So anyway,
The kingdom of God has come near.
yeah, kingdom of God has come near for everybody. All right, well, let's back up and talk about the larger picture. What's the setting of Luke, of the gospel in the first century, and who were his audiences that be listening to this?
I think it's really important to pay attention to how this would have been heard by Luke's audiences. And that was in the 15 to 20 years after the great Jewish Roman War. And so the powers of evil, the powers of Satan were associated for Luke's audiences with the Romans and with Roman power, with the Roman military. So that's in the background of this discussion of the kingdom of God and the power of the kingdom of God in the context of the power of Rome, which appears to be absolutely overwhelming.
Okay, thanks. Now, so the story starts with Jesus sending 70 out. It's interesting number. We keep hearing about 12, but now here we have 70 that he sends out. Right. Is there a significance to that number? And who were these 70, and what was their mission?
Well, the 70 kind of comes out of nowhere in the story. There aren't 70 following him. My hunch is that it has to do with Jesus being like Moses, and that Moses called the 70 elders. That's in that story is in Numbers 11, 16 and following, and where Moses appoints 70 elders to assist him and to be agents of God's giving the people meat after they've been complaining about the fact that they have no meat. And so he appoints these 70 elders to help him. Well, in this case, Jesus appoints 70 to help him in his mission. So I think it's my hunch is that this story comes as a continuation of the comparison of Jesus and Moses.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. There's a couple of memorable lines right at the beginning after he sends these 70 out. One of them is, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few."
Right.
Those of us who have searching for laborers in various ministries often remember that line. There's so much need, and there seems like there's often too few people to address that need. And then also he says, "I'm sending you out like sheep,
Lambs,
not just sheep, but lambs into the midst of wolves." Cost of discipleship theme again, I guess. The risks are associated with this work. And then he says, "Carry no purse, no bag, no sandals, and greet no one on the road." What is all that about?
it's about their being focused on their mission and of their not taking anything for their own protection or their own enhancement. They are to be totally dependent on those who, the towns where they go, and to model then the power of the kingdom of God and of the spirit of the kingdom. So that this is about spiritual warfare, and so Jesus is telling them that the way of the kingdom of God is the way of dependence, is the way of being vulnerable, which is involved in peacemaking, which is involved in loving your enemy. So many of the dimensions of this overall theme of the kingdom of God in Luke is related to this overall theme of the power of the kingdom of God that is present in spiritual dependence on God and of appealing to that power.
And Jesus gives very specific instructions about what they're to say when they enter a house, which I find helpful. He says, "Peace be to this house."
Right.
And then he not only does he tell them what to say, but how to respond, or if that peace is received, then something about the peace will be shared. If not, the
Someone
peace
who
will come
shares in
back to
peace.
you.
Right. Right. Well, it's an identification of the discernment of spirit. And so to announce at the beginning, "Peace be to this house," makes clear what this mission is about and what this person is up to. He's about the extension of peace. And in the context of the aftermath of the Jewish-Roman War, the extension of peace and the spirit of peace is exactly what was needed in the diaspora communities of Israel in the Roman Empire. And so he is instructing them to make it clear. They're not there to dominate. They're not there to invade the house. They're there in peace. And if someone is there who shares a commitment to the spirit of peace, then that peace will rest on them. It will encourage and empower the persons in that house. And if not, that greeting will return to you. Nothing's lost. There is nothing about conflict that is generated by that. It will come back to you. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's kind of encouragement for those times when the message isn't received, or you're not either
There's
taken
no one there
seriously
to
or
respond,
not,
right.
or taken with hostility. Is, don't get all stressed out. It's not about you,
Right.
So I find that helpful. He gives more specific instructions. He says, remain in that house, don't move from house to house, eat and drink what they provide. What's the importance of all of that?
It's clear that in the context of the first century that there were wandering prophets who would go around, and that part of what they would do was that they would move from house to house and collect as much as they could get. And that led to a lack of credibility for these various itinerant ministries. Jesus is establishing that in his itinerant ministry, that they are not to try to profit from moving around and collecting from house to house, but rather to stay in one place, eat whatever they provide, and that's it. You don't try to manipulate the situation to create as much benefit as possible for yourself as a missionary.
But on the other hand, he does say, go ahead and eat it. A labor deserves to be paid.
Yeah, whatever is in that house.
Right. So that
Right.
actually came to me recently. We had a wonderful a presentation at our church, a day-long training, and it was an 8-hour training on mental health first aid. And the woman she'd drive from Columbus and spend the whole day and drive back and share her expertise. Well, she didn't ask, for any honorarium. I asked her what we could give her, and she said nothing. She does it because it's just a real passion of hers to share, to train people in mental health first aid. But when it came to, she did ask for, there were handbooks involved, and we paid for those. But I thought of this passage. I thought the labor deserves to be paid. I'm going to give her at least a token honorarium. So,
right.
It's a significant passage. Okay. All right. So those who don't receive them, they're supposed to wipe the dust off their feet in towns that reject them. What's the advice
Well,
there Jesus given?
it's for encouragement of those who are the 70 who are being sent out, and that when they are rejected and somebody wants nothing to do with them, that they don't need to feel defeated or discouraged. Rather, make it clear that what's happening is that the people who are rejecting them are rejecting the kingdom of God and its powers. And so they are losing then the possibility of the spirit of the kingdom of God occupying a place in this unique way.
So what is the vision of the kingdom of God in this story, and the power of the kingdom of God?
It's a vision of a spiritual power that is stronger than the power of the Roman dominant empire, of the Roman army. The kingdom of God is in contrast to the kingdom of variously Domitian, the kingdom of Rome. And it is a vision of the power of peacemaking, the power of giving, the power of overall commitment to the poor, to those who are sick. So all the things that Jesus does, he asks them to do, cure the sick who are there, and to carry out his mission, which is a mission of the extension of peace. And that's why it's first. And so they go with no arms, with no swords. They go to extend then this kingdom that is the extension of the power of the kingdom of God.
And the 70 come back, they're all very excited. They say, even the demons submit to us. Jesus responds with a rather strange statement. I saw Satan falling from heaven. What does he mean by that?
Well, it is an extension of this metaphor of the kingdom of God as a spiritual power. And so the myth that lies behind it is the conflict between the powers, between the angels of God and the angels of Satan. And in this case, what Jesus is saying is, when I hear these stories, what I have seen is Satan falling out of heaven, that he's no longer in a place of power, that the powers of evil are defeated in all these various symbolic as well as personal ways, and that what they are experiencing, what they are doing, is they are carrying out the defeat of Satan and of the powers of evil, and so that power of the kingdom of God is symbolized by the vision of Satan falling from heaven like a flash of light.
That's a fun vision. The news is so full of so many discouraging and things that do not seem that they're of God or moving us toward the kingdom of God. But every now and then, you hear something that is really positive. So some friends of mine came back from a trip they took and told us about a refuge for herons, a place that just is dedicated to all different breeds of herons, and saving them, from extinction, and letting them have their nests and their eggs and their babies, and then helping them to go out into the wild again. So I can just see Satan falling from heaven when I hear about people like that who are just dedicated to the work of God's kingdom in so many different ways, and that is the case. They just often don't get into the news so much. So now you talked some, Tom, about how this story relates to ministries of peace and justice. Is there anything else you want to share about that before we sign off?
one of the major issues that faces ministries of peace and justice is discouragement, and of feeling like, it doesn't matter what we do, the powers of the enemy, the powers of the old age are dominant. And so this story is a story of encouragement for everyone who is involved in peace and justice ministries now. I think it's also important to recognize that the beginning of that, the first thing in ministries of peace and justice, is the proclamation of peace. Peace be to this house, peace be to this town, peace be to this nation. And that the powers of the kingdom of God are powers of peace, and that justice ministry, the reformation of justice, happens as an extension and continuation of the power of the proclamation of peace.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good week.
Right.